The air inside the London auditorium was thick with anticipation. Hundreds of people packed the seats, cameras from major news outlets, and live streams capturing moment. The debate had been hyped for weeks. Andrewtate versus Alex Carter. A clash of ideologies, tradition versus progress. The kind of event that didn't just entertain, it divided. Tate sat on one side of the stage, relaxed, dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, his signature sunglasses shielding his eyes. He exuded power, the kind of confidence that didn't need permission. Opposite him, Alex Carter, a well-known LGBT activist, stood tall, their navy blue suit crisp, their expression poised and unreadable. Between them, the moderator adjusted his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Tonight's debate. The future of masculinity, does it need to change? On one side, we have Andrewtate, entrepreneur, former world kickboxing champion, and outspoken advocate for traditional masculinity. On the other, Alex Carter, activist, author, and one of the leading voices in the push for inclusivity and societal progress. A mix of applause and jeers erupted. The audience was divided, and that was exactly what made this event a spectacle. The moderator continued, "We begin with opening statements. Mr. Tate, the floor is yours." Tate exhaled, rolling his shoulders. He didn't need notes. He didn't need preparation. He was built for this. "The world today is upside down," he said, voice steady but commanding. "Men are being told that their natural instincts to lead, to dominate, to conquer are wrong. They're being taught that being strong is dangerous. And the result? We have the weakest, most miserable generation in history." He stepped forward, adjusting his watch as he spoke. "Look at society today. Depression, anxiety. Men afraid to speak their minds because they might offend someone. Why? Because we've told them to be weak. We've told them to apologize for who they are. But here's a truth no one wants to admit. The world wasn't built by weakness. It was built by men. Masculine men who fought wars, who laid foundations, who created the systems we all benefit from today. And now, we're told that same masculinity is toxic? Give me a break." The room responded instantly, some cheering wildly, others booing just as loudly. Alex stepped up to the podium as soon as Tate finished, adjusting their microphone. Their posture remained relaxed, but their eyes sharpened. "Mr. Tate speaks about masculinity as if it's a fixed concept," they said smoothly. "But here's the thing, masculinity has always changed. It's not just about war and conquest. It's about intelligence, cooperation, leadership. The strongest men in history weren't just fighters. They were thinkers, creators, innovators." They turned slightly, addressing the crowd. "You want to talk about what makes men miserable? It's not weakness. It's the pressure to fit into an outdated mold of masculinity that tells them they can't be vulnerable, that they can't express emotions, that they have to be cold and unfeeling to be strong. That's why mental health issues among men are through the roof, not because they're too soft, but because they've been told that asking for help makes them failures." More applause, this time from the other half of the crowd. Alex turned back to Tate. "You claim masculinity is under attack. I say it's evolving. The question is, can you evolve with it?" Tate chuckled, shaking his head. "The classic argument. True strength is vulnerability. You see, this is the exact weakness I'm talking about." He leaned toward the mic, voice unwavering. "You want to redefine masculinity? Fine. But answer this. When in history did softness ever build anything? When did vulnerability ever lead a nation? When did being collaborative ever protect a civilization? You can dress it up however you like, but at the end of the day, only the strong survive. That's how nature works. That's how the world works." Alex's jaw tightened slightly. Tate's smirk widened. He saw the hesitation. He had drawn first blood. "You talk about equality and fairness, but let's be honest. You don't want equality. You want control. You want to strip masculinity of everything that makes it powerful. But the truth is, no matter how much society tries to suppress it, real men don't ask for permission to exist." The crowd exploded, some on their feet cheering, others shouting in anger. The moderator raised his hands for silence. "Let's keep this civil. Mr. Carter, your response? Alex took a slow breath, steadying himself before responding. You say real men don't ask for permission to exist, they said. But here's the thing, Andrew, no one is telling men they can't exist. We're saying they don't have to exist at the expense of everyone else. They don't have to suppress others just to feel strong. They took a step forward. The world isn't about war and conquest anymore. The strongest societies today aren't the ones that conquer. They're the ones that adapt. The ones that build, that create, that work together instead of tearing each other down. That's what true strength looks like. Tate exhaled, adjusting his cuffs. He had been expecting that argument. The moderator intervened, sensing the rising tension. We'll pause here before moving to the next section. Tate leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. Alex, however, wasn't done. This was just the beginning. The break was brief, but the energy in the auditorium had only intensified. Spectators whispered among themselves. Social media exploded with live reactions, and the moderators exchanged glances. They knew they had a war on their hands. Tate sat back, legs crossed, looking completely unbothered. He thrived in high-pressure environments. Meanwhile, Alex Carter stood near their podium, their jaw tight as they scrolled through their notes. The moderator adjusted his microphone. Let's continue. Our next question. What does the future of masculinity look like? Does it need to change? Or is the traditional model still the best path forward? Mr. Carter, you begin. Alex straightened, their voice firm. Masculinity doesn't need to be destroyed, Mr. Tate, but it does need to evolve. You keep saying that men are being told to be weak. That's not true. What we're saying is that strength doesn't have to mean domination. It can mean emotional intelligence, adaptability, the ability to connect with others instead of just overpowering them. They turned to the crowd. Look at the most successful leaders today, not just businessmen, but scientists, innovators, creators. They're not succeeding because they're conquering people. They're succeeding because they understand the power of working with others. Scattered applause followed, but Tate was already shaking his head. This is a problem with modern thinking, he said, stepping forward. It's built on a fantasy. You're talking about emotional intelligence like it replaces power. It doesn't. The world still runs on strength, economic, military, and personal. All of these so-called visionary leaders, they may talk about cooperation, but the second they sense weakness in an opponent, they crush them because they know the truth. Power is taken, not given. More cheers and jeers erupted from the audience. Alex exhaled sharply, keeping their composure. That's exactly the outdated thinking I'm talking about. The idea that everything has to be a fight, that the only way to succeed is to crush someone else. The world doesn't work that way anymore. Tate smirked. Doesn't it? Let's test that theory. You're here debating me. You're not trying to cooperate. You're trying to win. Why? Because you know deep down that strength still matters. Alex hesitated just slightly. Tate stepped in. See? Even now, you're trying to outmaneuver me. You can call it progress. You can dress it up as cooperation. But at the end of the day, you still want to win. Because instinctively, you know that's how the world works. The audience noise grew louder. Alex took a steadying breath. I'm here because I believe in a better future, they countered. One where success isn't about who can dominate the hardest, but who can build the most. Collaboration is the future. The strongest people aren't the ones who tear others down. They're the ones who lift others up. Tate laughed, shaking his head. No, the strongest people don't get torn down in the first place. The room erupted. The moderator quickly stepped in. Let's keep this structured. Next question, Mr. Tate. You say traditional masculinity is under attack. What do you think is causing this shift? Tate exhaled, shaking his head. It's simple, he said. Weak men make weak societies. We live in a time where people have it too easy. When life was hard, when men had to hunt for food, fight wars, build civilizations, there was no time to debate what masculinity meant. You were either strong enough to survive or you weren't. Now, we live in a world where people are comfortable and suddenly they start thinking strength isn't necessary. But history shows what happens when men get weak. He pointed toward the crowd. Great civilizations fall. Safety disappears. And people start looking for someone strong to fix it. And when that time comes, when reality hits, do you think they'll look to collaborators? No, they'll look to the ones who never forgot what strength really means. The crowd exploded. Applause, shouting boos, it was chaos. Alex clenched their jaw, but their response was quick. "You're confusing strength with control," they said, voice sharp. "You act like society is crumbling, but it's actually moving forward. More people than ever have rights. More people than ever are able to live without fear of being silenced, of being forced into boxes they don't fit into. That's not weakness, that's progress." Tate leaned against his podium, clearly amused. More people than ever are on antidepressants. More people than ever are unhappy. If the so-called progress is so great, why is everyone miserable? Alex hesitated just briefly. Tate seized it instantly. "I'll tell you why," he said, voice lower but more intense. "Because deep down, human beings crave strength. Men, women, all of them. They don't respect people who beg for permission. They respect power. They respect winners. And when the world eventually falls apart, they'll remember that." The crowd was on fire. Alex exhaled slowly. This was a war of endurance. The crowd had become restless. Spectators shifted in their seats, some enthralled, others furious. The energy in the room crackled with tension. Online, the debate had already gone viral, with hashtags trending worldwide. Andrewtate stood at his podium, completely at ease, like a general surveying a battlefield. Opposite him, Alex Carter had tightened their grip on the edges of the podium, their expression composed but intense. They weren't going to let Tate run away with this. The moderator checked his notes before speaking. "Next question. What is the ideal role of masculinity in modern society? Should traditional values remain, or do they need to be replaced? Mr. Carter, you first." Alex took a breath, steadying himself before speaking. "We don't need to destroy masculinity. We need to expand it. Masculinity shouldn't be a rigid set of rules that tells men they can only be strong if they're emotionless, or successful if they dominate others. A truly strong man isn't afraid of change. He isn't afraid to listen, to grow, to be vulnerable when necessary. That's the difference between confidence and insecurity. Confidence allows growth, but insecurity clings to outdated ideas out of fear." Their words resonated with a portion of the crowd, drawing applause and nods of agreement. Alex turned to Tate, their gaze unwavering. "You claim that modern masculinity is under attack, but what you're really upset about is the fact that you no longer get to define it alone. Masculinity isn't just about brute strength. It's about intelligence, adaptability, emotional resilience. You call that weakness? I call that evolution." Tate listened, arms crossed, an amused smirk playing on his lips. He let the applause settle before leaning forward. "That's a nice speech," he said. "But here's the problem. You talk about expanding masculinity like it's some philosophy class discussion. But the real world doesn't care about theories. It cares about results. And history has shown us one thing. Weak men lose." His voice deepened, commanding attention. "You talk about emotional resilience? The men who built this world didn't sit around having self-reflection circles. They didn't ask themselves how they felt about their role in society. They just did what needed to be done." He gestured toward the audience. "Look around. We live in the safest, most advanced society in human history, and you say masculinity needs a change. But as soon as things go bad, as soon as there's danger, who do people turn to? The strong, the prepared, the men who never forgot what real masculinity is." The crowd roared, some in agreement, others in defiance. Alex held their ground. "That's the illusion you push," they said firmly. "That society will collapse without the old model of masculinity. But history doesn't just belong to warriors, Andrew. It belongs to thinkers, creators, revolutionaries. If we want a strong society, we need men who know how to build, not just destroy." Tate let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "And yet, the strongest societies in history were the ones led by men who were ready to fight for them. You can talk about building all you want, But the second someone stronger wants to take what you built, guess who protects it? Men like me. The tension in the room thickened. The moderator cut in before the crowd could erupt again. Let's shift focus. Mr. Tate, you claim modern masculinity is being weakened. But what is your solution? What does the ideal man look like to you? Tate straightened. Simple, he said. A real man takes responsibility. He is physically strong, mentally sharp, financially successful, and dangerous when necessary. He doesn't beg for approval. He commands respect. He doesn't fold under pressure, and he doesn't make excuses. In short, a real man is someone who can handle life. The applause was thunderous. Alex exhaled, their expression unreadable. Then they spoke. That's funny, they said, because that's exactly what I believe too. A murmur ran through the audience. Even Tate raised an eyebrow. Alex continued. You say men should be responsible? I agree. You say men should be strong? I agree. But what you refuse to acknowledge is that strength doesn't all look the same. A man who raises his children with patience? Strong. A man who stands up for others, even when it's unpopular? Strong. A man who is confident enough to grow, rather than just control? Strong. Tate's smirk remained, but his eyes sharpened. Alex stepped forward. You say men shouldn't make excuses. Then why are you making excuses for masculinity, to stay trapped in the past? A heavy silence fell over the room. For the first time in the debate, Tate didn't immediately respond. The crowd felt it. The momentum had shifted. The moderator cleared his throat. Let's take a short break. As the lights dimmed, Alex turned back to their seat. They had landed their first real blow. Tate exhaled slowly, his smirk still in place. But his mind was already crafting his next move. The break had done nothing to cool the fire in the room. If anything, the energy had intensified. Online, the debate was drawing millions of views. Every moment was being clipped, analyzed, and dissected in real time. Andrewtate rolled his shoulders, adjusting his cuffs. He had felt the shift in momentum. Alex Carter had landed a solid hit, but they had made one mistake. They had given him an opening. The moderator signaled for silence. Final question of the night. What is the greatest threat to modern masculinity? And how do we fix it? Mr. Tate, you first. Tate exhaled through his nose, gripping the edges of his podium. The greatest threat to masculinity, he repeated, voice steady. Weakness. He let the word hang in the air. Let the audience feel it before continuing. This world is teaching men to be ashamed of strength, to be ashamed of ambition. Instead of conquering obstacles, they're told to express their feelings and embrace vulnerability. And what do we get in return? A generation of lost, miserable men, more suicides, more depression, more young men with no sense of direction, no sense of purpose. His voice grew sharper. You want to know how we fix it? We stop lying to men. We stop telling them that being soft is the same as being strong. We stop pretending that collaboration replaces dominance. Because when the world goes dark, when things get hard, it won't be the emotionally evolved men who step up. It'll be the ones who never forgot that strength is everything. The audience exploded. The cheers were deafening, but the opposition was just as loud. Alex didn't flinch. They had been waiting for this moment. Strength is everything, they echoed. Then why are the strong men the ones who crumble the hardest under pressure? The crowd hushed. Alex pressed forward. You talk about men being lost, about them struggling. But maybe the real reason men are suffering isn't because they're too soft. It's because they were never taught how to handle anything except winning. The moment life doesn't go their way, they fall apart. Why? Because they were never allowed to express doubt, never allowed to ask for help, never allowed to be human. They shook their head. You say society is lying to men. But maybe the biggest lie is the one you're selling. The idea that men should never struggle, never feel, never change. That's not strength, Andrew. That's fear. The impact was instant. The room shifted. Tate exhaled slowly. His expression hadn't changed, but there was a different energy in his stance now. For the first time, it wasn't his audience controlling the reaction. But he wasn't done. Not yet. He leaned forward, voice lower but still powerful. You say I'm selling a lie? He said. Then answer me this. When disaster strikes, when danger comes knocking, who do people call? He pointed toward the crowd. They don't call the ones who ask for help. They don't call the ones who collaborate. They call the strongest, the ones who can handle it. That's reality. That's how the world works. The crowd erupted again, but this time there was an uncertainty in the air. Alex met Tate's gaze, steady. Then tell me, Andrew, when you're alone at night, when the cameras are off, when there's no one left to impress, who do you call? The words hit like a hammer. Tate's smirk faltered for the briefest second, so quick that most wouldn't notice. But Alex did. The room was silent, completely silent. The moderator shifted uncomfortably, sensing the weight of the moment. Alex continued, voice quiet but firm. No one can be strong every second of every day. Not even you. And the difference between a man who survives and a man who thrives? The second one isn't afraid to reach out before it's too late. Tate exhaled slowly, rolling his neck. His smirk returned, but the fire behind was different now. The moderator cleared his throat. That concludes our debate. Thank you both for being here tonight. Tate straightened his cuffs and nodded once at the crowd. The applause, the shouting, the chaos, it all blurred together. He had won the way that mattered to his supporters. But something lingered. As he turned to leave, he stole one last glance at Alex Carter. They weren't smiling. They weren't celebrating. They just held his gaze, steady, unwavering. For the first time in a long time, Tate wasn't sure if he had truly won. The crowd roared. The debate was over.